Testing. Hey, it's 3 o'clock and I want to be mindful of everybody's time since it's kind of late in the day. I know some of you Gwinnett folks have a long ride. Chairman Bonner, would you open us in prayer? What number you hit your button? All right, go ahead.
All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. We thank you for this time to gather together to consider these important issues. We just pray for wisdom and discernment as we do this in the best interest of the state of Georgia and our constituents. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, sir. This is the first meeting of the second half of the biennial. So I do want to make just a couple of observations. Welcome back, Mark Hamilton. He was the chair of this committee when I came in 9 years ago. So it feels like we've come full circle. And secondly, some of you a couple hours ago that were in the public safety meeting, I just want to bring this up. The PTSD bill that started out as a workers' comp bill that we spent a lot of time on. And then when all the parties were meeting, we decided it might be better as a general insurance bill. And so there was, that's been like a 3-year process, and it just passed out unanimously a couple of years ago. But I did want to get a shout out to Representative Kennard because he kind of started that 3 years ago. And so it was good to see it come to fruition today. With that, we've got 2 bills, and we're going to start with Chair Lady Silcox. Come on up to the podium table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Tell us what you got.
Thank you so much. I come to you today, of course, with House Bill 501. House Bill 501 has 2 sections. In section 1, I have to give credit to Representative Schofield for this. This was her bill, and it will prohibit employers from discriminating against employees based solely on their age if they are 40 years of age or older. The second section will allow a minor 14 years or older to work without an employment certificate, or certificate of age as a condition of that employment during vacations from school in the summers. This bill was brought to me by some young people in House District 53 that wanted to work at the concession stand at Chastain Park. They wrote letters to testify in committee and have learned a lot about our government in this process. The Department of Labor has approved this bill 100%. And very interesting, since last session, this summer, Chairman Prince held a great Urban Affairs Committee meeting. Don't know if any of you had a chance to follow any of that, but there was testimony from cities all over the state. And overwhelmingly, they said that the best way they thought that we could save a lot of our troubled youth from getting into trouble was to be able to give them employment in the summers so that they could hopefully earn money to improve their self-image and skills, as well as to help their families. So it was just very interesting that this would kind of come full circle with the Urban Affairs Committee, and would so appreciate your support.
Okay. And just so we're covering all our bases, this is LC 3655550S.
Correct.
And I think the first light down there was Chairman Bonner. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for the bill. Just questions regarding the 14 years of age starting on line 47.
Mm-hmm.
What about those folks that possibly homeschool, or like in the case of my daughter, she attends a virtual school? How do we address that since they don't typically follow the normal or vacation schedule?
It could be any time. It could be year round. It's not restricted to the summer. It just was the example I gave for my own district.
Well, but it actually says in the bill, employed during the months of vacation from school.
But that could be any month of the year if they're homeschooled.
Okay.
If they're on vacation from school, they're on
Okay.
vacation from school.
Well, I guess I maybe should ask the question differently. So for instance, like I'll use my daughter as an example, with her schooling being virtual, she has the flexibility to get a job during school, or, while school,
Oh, I see. So
during
it'd be
the
more,
school months.
so
And
it just wouldn't be seasonal is what you're saying.
that's correct.
I'd be happy to broaden that. That would be happy to. I think, again, the opportunity for young people to gain employment, to earn their way, to help their families, to gain new skills, and hopefully, become more self-confident. I think those are all important things.
I completely agree. That's why, I mean, for me,
Mhm.
I would not limit it to just those months of vacation. Number one, because it may be a bit vague in interpretation, but also, I mean, again, if you're doing a flexible schedule, that would allow you that throughout the year. So.
Yeah.
Like after school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next we had, is that Representative Park? Are you 17?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Silcox, thank you so much for the bill. I certainly appreciate all the good work you're doing to help pass or to carry, I should say, Representative Kim Schofield's bill. I know that this is a piece of legislation that we discussed last year.
Correct.
And while I think I'm okay with 2/3 of it, again, it remains that last third
Mhm.
from lines 62 to 73 in particular. Line 68, we're essentially saying no state government or political subdivision may require a minor under 18 years of age to be issued an employment certificate.
Correct.
So the question that I asked last year, again, how is this not going to undermine child labor laws that we've had for decades now?
The Department of Labor is okay with this. I think that certainly if there were bad actors, they certainly have the ability to be reported and addressed by the Department of Labor appropriately. So I do think we have some other controls that we didn't have previously when we had child labor problems.
I would love to hear from the Department of Labor in terms of why they're supporting this bill and how they will continue to protect children here in the state of Georgia from unlawful practices.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring them with me.
Okay. Number 25. Representative Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing this bill.
Of course.
I do think some good points were brought up, but I just wanted to say, we've heard from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce lately about the number of current college students who've never had a job. And I think the number is 60% or higher. And so I agree that making it easier for younger people to get a job, if that's what they need to do, is only going to benefit them later in their life when they enter the workforce, so that they know how to be a good employee and they know how to deal with an employer. And so I thank you for bringing this. And I was a homeschool parent for a while, and I do see Chairman Potter's point there.
Absolutely.
That, so I don't know if we need that clarification, but I think it might be helpful for homeschool families, virtual school families, just to have that. But I think it's a great bill and would encourage people to learn how to be an employee before they actually enter the workforce after college. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'm gonna bounce back and forth. Who's number 18? All right, go ahead, Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess, I want to say I hear it, I understand it. And I guess on line 50 and 51, where it says when you want them working the lawn and garden and things of that nature, my only concern is, what about training of equipment? I mean, I don't see many 14-year-olds, operating weed eaters. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, you never lived at my house.
Well, I know, but I mean, that's one of the things I guess I have is that there's nothing to say, I'm going to train you to use this equipment, but, put you out there. Is that?
You know what? I think that's the employer's responsibility. And I think everybody is aware of liability. Everybody, responsible employers, of course, have insurance. And I think if you're going to be a responsible employer, you're going to show that employee how to use that equipment properly and that sort of thing. And I think that they will do that because they don't want the liability of an accident.
I mean, I would think so too, but I'm just still saying that, I'm from the old school, person got sued on a baseball field. He told the kid to keep his eye on the ball. He just told him to keep his eye on the ball, and he did, and the ball hit him in the eye. He didn't put his glove up. He didn't tell him everything, all what he needed to do, and they were sued. So I just wanted to make sure that some training was involved, or either that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we're guaranteeing that this is going to be 100% perfect. Absolutely not. But I do think that the policy concern, and if you could have been in the Urban Affairs Committee meeting with Chairman Prince this summer, the overwhelming number of African-American youth that desperately need to learn skills, that desperately need jobs to help their families, to help themselves, and to know how to be employed. If you could have heard the outcry from Columbus in particular, you would not believe Representative McClain, seriously. So yes, I do think we're taking a small risk here, but I think the policy concern, again, of the unbelievable suicide rate we have among youth in this state, of the unbelievable amount of depression from social media, of the unbelievable amount of obesity that we have for kids not being able to work. The latchkey kids that don't have anything to do but watch television and get sexually involved with other students because there's nothing else to do but play video games, watch television, do homework, or have sex. I'm really serious about this. This is a problem. These children need something that's productive, that is positive for them, that is positive for them to learn skills, that is positive for them to contribute to their families.
Thank you.
Okay. Chairman Petrie.
I think you got me. I snuck in there on you.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
24.
That's me, baby.
Yeah,
I was here hitting this button quick.
he was flash.
Jesse's better looking than me. You probably should go with it. But
Well,
so just for
wanna go in order.
clarification, this doesn't say that the Department of Labor can't regulate how many hours the kids are working, all that stuff that's already in law. That
Correct.
they can still regulate this. All this is doing is closing a loophole where a kid's got to go to 4 different places to get signatures so that I can hire him at my restaurant.
Well, and what happened in our case was the kids were already out of school. And so the mechanism to be able to go to school and get the paperwork to get the certificate wasn't available. The school was closed.
Sure. Yeah.
So the child could not get the job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so this is how this evolved.
In the real world, it's a loop. It's 12 steps to get a kid to get a job.
Correct.
And it just shouldn't be. Obviously restaurants need employees. Obviously kids need to learn how to work. I would challenge you, if your kid hadn't worked before the age of 16, you've ruined him for his whole life because he'll never learn how to work.
You
Sorry,
sound like my
no
dad.
offense. No offense, but I think we've got to get these kids working, because if you're graduating college and it's the first time you've worked, you might as well just fold it up, baby. You better find a sugar mama.
All right. Now we got 22, Chairman Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to kind of echo what my colleague here just said. So again, I'm old school too, to my friend down here. He made some good comments. I'm old school as well. And I think back in the day, we all had to work when we were young, and that was expected by parents, that we get out and work, and it was good for you as a young person. I did that. Most of my friends all did. And I think we created a stronger group of young people back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and as someone who was a large employer and employed many, many folks, I will tell you, there's not a person that hires a lot of folks today that will not tell you that you have a different culture among young people as it relates to their work ethic than you did in the past.
Mhm.
So I think anything we can do, to Representative Carpenter's comment, Chairman Carpenter's comments, to get young people to work when they take the initiative to do so is a good thing. And thank you for this.
Thank you, Representative.
Representative Kennard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it possible to hear from the Department of Labor just to say they've vetted this and just clear up any questions we have? I think overall I'm pretty supportive of it. Would like to make sure we're not running afoul of any child labor laws.
I think last year, Chair Lady Silcox did that, and we're not beholden to that. I think we've already been tasked with the workforce issue. Our goal is to reduce and get rid of regulations. Even if I'm not sure Department of Labor would have purview over. We're the legislative branch, so I don't know that getting their permission, in my opinion, is necessary, but that's just my opinion. Who's 29? Okay, Representative Cameron.
Yep. Thank you. My mother found me a job when I was 14, chopping wood and doing barbecue. I had to walk a mile on a state highway to get to work. Plus, I had to keep all my clothes clean, buy my shoes and everything else. It taught discipline. It taught skills that you use in life that took me on. So I think this is a good bill, and I appreciate you bringing it.
Thank you.
Since everybody's trying to one up, I was cutting and sweating copper pipes when I was 14 with a torch underneath the basement. So if your pipes busted this past weekend, I'm your guy. Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I like 2/3 of this bill, but just to continue to reiterate the point, it's one thing to ensure that there's a more streamlined process for the youth to work. Certainly, being on the Higher Education Committee, there's been a lot of efforts to ensure that certain programs, CTAE programs, are geared toward high career demand initiatives. But the prohibition on any state government to issue an employment certificate for a minor under the age of 18 for employment purposes, again, it's incredibly concerning. My understanding is that you won't have to be 12 years old under state law here in Georgia in order to work, 14 under federal rules and regs. If we're looking at kids between the ages of maybe 11 to 15 years old, again, I have very serious concerns, even if the Department of Labor Commissioner comes and testifies that he wants this, that this won't lead to harm. And not just when it comes to shrubbery or mowing someone's lawn, but especially as we're seeing a lot of advanced manufacturing coming back to the state of Georgia as well, in which there are serious allegations of children potentially being harmed in certain industries of that nature. Would you at all be open to striking out lines 62 to the 73, I think it is?
I would not be open to that.
Can you explain why?
Because I think it defeats the purpose of the bill.
Could you please?
I think it
explain?
guts the bill.
How does that gut the bill when the primary?
Because
focus
there are
was-
already laws and there are other laws in place that, as Representative Carpenter mentioned, for example, child labor laws and other laws that protect children. And if the Labor Department is okay with this and they approve this language, I really don't want to change it.
If I may, or
All right,
Mr.
final.
Chairman.
Yeah, because we're not gonna have a debate. We're gonna have a comment, then hopefully if somebody out in the crowd, go ahead. One last.
So, when I'm looking at lines 47 to 61, which you summarize in your initial presentation, not the latter half, there are very clear protections for 14-year-olds working in lawns, gardens, shrubbery. They're only permitted to do so if they would otherwise be covered by accident and sickness insurance or workman's compensation plan.
Mhm.
Again, line 68 to 73, it goes way too far, in my opinion, in which the only way in which these children would otherwise be protected is if there's some sort of private cause of action. Because what other mechanism otherwise exists to protect these children? I doubt that the Georgia Department of Labor has a capacity to investigate every single hire.
I have a
certainly-
great confidence in parents. I really do.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Chairman Bonner.
Well, just at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer an amendment. We want to do that now or wait till comment.
Let's do this because we wouldn't have to do the underlying bill. Is there anybody in the audience? I know we've got union, we've got some large organizations. Any input? Any thoughts? Looking at you. Any thoughts at all?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad Hume, Southeastern Carpenters. I don't disagree with the need at all or of this legislation. My concern comes, as I read the bill on the landscaping piece, it's not like it used to be when we grew up, as several of y'all have mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of advanced equipment used, ditch diggers, front end loaders, things like that around. And then some of these you have to be certified to operate in some cases. So I would just, go back to the training piece And depending on the employer to do that, may not be the best case scenario in terms of safety for these kids. At the end of the day, if it's a profit-driven outfit, which would be 100% of them, corners may be cut and could end up in fatality or dismemberment or things like that when it comes, and we're not talking about weed eaters and things like that, shovels, but when it comes to operation of equipment. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Anybody else? Chairman Petrie.
Move to pass.
All right, we've got a motion to pass. Is there a second? All right, now would be the appropriate time for an amendment during discussion. Wait, go ahead.
I would like to offer an amendment. If the author agrees, this would be starting on line 49, striking the words during the months of vacation from school and replacing those words with outside of school hours. So it would read, a minor 14 years of age or over may be employed outside of school hours in the care and maintenance of lawns, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. There's a motion on the amendment. Is there a second? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the amendment carries on the bill. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. All opposed? Okay, I think the ayes have it unless anybody wants a hand count. Okay, all those in favor of the bill, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you. Come see me for the forms and then you'll be off to rules. And speaking of getting rid of regulations, the next guy spent a year or two trying to do this very thing, getting rid of some regulations to help employment. Come on up, Representative Hilton, and he's going to bring another familiar face with us, Representative Buzz Brockway, who I had the pleasure of serving with for several years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honored to be the first time here presenting to industry and labor. So great to see y'all. I feel like, for the record, I should say at the age of 14, I was selling magazine subscriptions door to door. Little did I know how much that would help my political career later on down in life. So work is important. Here today to present to you House Bill 738. I'll be reading from LC 540217. This bill deals with innovation in government. A lot of times those two words are viewed as an oxymoron, but I think a lot of us and our constituents want to see us bring the two together. We have in Georgia very important safety net programs. The problem is we call them safety nets when in reality they ought to be safety trampolines. The goal of our safety net programs is to help people when they're at their worst and they need support, and then to get them right back into a healthy, productive work environment. Georgia right now being the #1 state in the business, we need a quality workforce, everyone participating at the same time. And so what House Bill 738 tries to address is the complicated myriad of process of what happens when someone comes into our program, and then how do we get them back into the workforce again? Oftentimes folks come in, they get lost within the system, and what we're proposing is a task force to look at how can we give them that one-stop shop approach where we can give them that white glove treatment to say, we've got you, here are the programs that you need, and here's how we can help you navigate government and get back into the workforce again. Of course, people across all political spectrums agree that work is the key to lifting people out of poverty. Georgia, through House Bill 738, will consolidate these programs and make it easier for Georgians to navigate that. This is not a study committee. This is a task force because this issue has been studied at length. In fact, it's actually already played out in the state of Utah, and we're going to have somebody testify later on as to how that model has worked there. House Bill 738 is also created as a task force because of what's called WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act in DC. When that is reauthorized in 3 years or so, Georgia will then have a waiver to begin to explore this type of program. The state of Utah was grandfathered in and able to do it, and their program was tremendously successful. Hopefully, most of you have this handout here in front of you with the blue cover. You'll see on page 1 there just an example of our current process of how an individual tries to navigate our current system. Now, imagine you're a single mother, English is a second language, and you're trying to navigate all that, get the help you need at a vulnerable time, and then get back into the workforce. But what has happened because of that, and you'll skip to the kind of the third page here, is our workforce recovery. And I'll refer to this kind of graph right here. So we saw during COVID, our workforce needs, that kind of orange and blue line, we were on a straight up trajectory. COVID happened, folks lost their jobs, people stayed at home. That red line is how people have come back to work. You see in Utah, that red line now intersects with the blue, and they've got almost full labor force participation rate. Georgia and California are examples over there. We have not come back yet to that blue line of full employment. In fact, we've got about 250,000 workers who are still at home for various reasons. And so we want to figure out why that is and how do we transition them back into the workforce. And I think it's, again, from what I said at the start, bringing innovation to government, creating a one-stop shop site where you can get both your safety net needs and your workforce needs taken care of. I'm happy to walk through the bill in detail, but I'll turn it over to my colleague here. I don't know what to call you, I feel like I need to call you Representative Brockway, but Buzz will kind of walk through some specifics of what we've seen, the outcomes, both in Utah and from other states that have done this.
Thank you, Representative. I guess you can call me Representative Emeritus. I don't have one of those license plates, although I know some representatives do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee for having us here today, and I appreciate my friend Representative Hilton for bringing this bill. These days, I'm working at the Georgia Center for Opportunity, and we're an organization, a nonprofit that seeks to figure out how we can knock down barriers to people getting a good job, getting a good education, and having a healthy family life. So that's kind of what drew us to this. A lot of work that we have done over the years. As Representative Hilton mentioned, the task force would be charged, as you see in the description there, with looking at how can Georgia streamline the delivery of its safety net programs, excuse me, but also bring into that the whole topic of work, all the workforce programs that Georgia has, and as Representative Hilton mentioned, those include WIOA programs that come through your technical college system, and other programs that we have in the state of Georgia. So what Utah has done, and we'll, in a moment we'll have an expert, Mason Bishop, talk about this, who studied what Utah has done at length. What they've done is combined under one department of state government called the Department of Workforce Services, all of their workforce programs and all of their safety net programs. So what actually happens in Utah when somebody comes in seeking, let's say they need SNAP benefits or food stamp benefits, they come into an office, and there in that office are all of the workforce programs, all of the safety net programs that person might need. A caseworker comes and works with them to help them develop a plan. All right, how do we get you back to work? How do we get you into a better job? What sort of work supports do you need in the form of these safety net programs to help you as you work on that path? And so that person is put on a path towards self-sufficiency and toward a career that they can have. And so we've seen some great results in that in Utah. As Representative Hilton mentioned, the last 2 pages show you the recovery of their job market post-COVID, which was faster than anybody's in the country. We did well in Georgia through y'all's hard work and working with the governor and others in our private sector. However, Utah was able to get people back to work faster than anybody else in the country. And so we understand that correlation is not causation, but I think we can all agree that that focus on work has helped get people back into the job market. So the task force would chart out that path. How can Georgia get from where it is now to a unified system? And the reason we're bringing this now is, as Representative Hilton mentioned, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is up for renewal in the Congress. We were able, through some work with some allies that we have, to get a permissive piece put in that WIOA reauthorization that would allow the state of Georgia in 3 years from now, allow the state of Georgia to pursue this if it wants to. We don't have to. And even if you vote for this task force bill and this bill moves forward, we're not committing to any sort of structure. We're creating a task force that would create a plan. Then y'all as legislators, governor, whoever is the governor when we wrap this up, y'all would get to decide, is this something we want to do? And so we're relying on the beauty of federalism for Georgia to develop a plan that works great for the state of Georgia. It doesn't have to look like Utah's, but that's, I think, something that you can look to and learn from. So that's what we seek to do here. The WIOA piece in there, just to let you know, it was very heavily negotiated. Republicans and Democrats, I know it's hard to believe, but Republicans and Democrats actually came together and agreed on that portion of the bill that allowed then the whole WIOA reauthorization package with that in it to pass committee 44-1. And the one was a Freedom Caucus member who just was mad that we weren't repealing all of welfare. But so I think that, in this age of division, this is something that Congress is actually agreeing on and moving forward in a bipartisan fashion. And so I guess two other quick things I'll mention, and then we can bring in the other speaker. The state of Texas last year passed a bill modeled on this, and they will be launching their task force here very soon. It might be underway right now. And there was a second thing I was going to mention, but I can't remember it. But anyway, yeah. So that's I appreciate the opportunity to testify. Again, I'm grateful to my friend Representative Hilton for bringing this forward, and we do have with us Mr. Mason Bishop, who authored a couple studies on what Utah has done, and he can speak to that.
You had one question, Chairman Bonner, and then we'll listen to the speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Great bill. I really appreciate it. Just one question I had is, do you want to look at adjusting the dates?
Yeah, we've got all
Yes,
that fixed.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bill was introduced last year, and the calendar has passed us by.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you to Media Services for the great work that they always do, and that we're able to hear from Mr. Mason Bishop. Okay.
All set? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And I will try to take a very complex issue and keep it very simple and as concise as possible. There's a couple things starting out I always like to let legislators and others know who are looking into this topic. One is, I like to say, one of the problems we have is we have a number of federal programs that make up our workforce system and social assistance system that were created in the New Deal era and the Great Society era and trying to operate in an iPhone economy. And it's created a number of struggles. The thing to remember is, while we're talking about the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, we really are talking about a myriad of employment and training programs coming from various federal agencies down to various state agencies, and all connecting and trying to work together. And what WIOA does are two things. One is it provides some funding to serve adults, dislocated workers, and youth with employment training services, but it also then tries to create this one-stop system. And the struggle with the one-stop system is this, is I could challenge any one of you to go into your communities and find out how many physical locations you need to go to get the array of services that you may or may not be eligible for around job training, social assistance, financial assistance, SNAP, food stamp benefits, etc. And I dare say that you have to go to at least 3 to 4 locations. In Utah, you have to go to one place. You literally can go to any community in Utah, go through one physical location and receive the full array of services that you are eligible for. The second thing we like to say in Utah that is different than just about every other state is that they fund services, not programs. What's going on in Georgia right now is you're funding programs that are then trying to operate in these silos and try to serve people. And it gets even more complicated when you realize that a majority of the WIOA funds actually go locally to local workforce boards, while the other millions of dollars you're getting in through TANF and these other programs are being served through state agencies primarily. So then you've got a splintering of who's actually delivering the services. And so what it's essentially created is this really untenable situation where individuals who are some of the most vulnerable people in our populations are being asked to go to 3 to 4 locations, talk to 3 or 4 different caseworkers, migrate through 3 to 4 case management systems that get asked the same questions over and over again. And meanwhile, employers are not able to get the skilled workers they need to grow and be more productive. So now they're going to turn to AI and automation and other kinds of productivity gains, which are going to exacerbate the skilled worker employment situation. So essentially what happened in Utah is this. I was actually involved in this. I worked for Governor Mike Leavitt at the time in 1996 and 97. And we consolidated what at the time were 5 different agencies into a single integrated Department of Workforce Services, that, as was stated. We also in Utah have what's called a single state area, where we don't have local workforce boards and we're not sending funds down to counties and cities, but instead the state operates all of the one-stop centers throughout the state. What's nice about this, I always say there are 3 things that Utah did that are really modernization principles. One is we programmatically administered and integrated our programs into a single state agency. Number 2 is we integrated and had a seamless service delivery system at the state and local community level, where again, people have one place they have to go for services. Then number 3 is the financial and fiscal integration, which allows the state of Utah to move resources across the state depending on what's happening. So for instance, if you have money and you have a major layoff in a certain part of the state, you can immediately deploy those funds to address that layoff, which in Georgia and other states you're not able to do because the money's sitting in local areas and you can't recapture and reallocate and a bunch of bureaucratic stuff that goes on. So it's very, very important to realize that what Utah has done is put all their resources in a single place that also creates the kind of efficiencies that drive more dollars out of bureaucracy and into the actual services itself. So instead of having, 3 program administrators over the northern region of Utah, you only need 1 now, and you can take the resources that we're paying for those other 4 and drive those into additional services for employers and job seekers. One quick anecdote, and then I open for questions, any questions. During COVID, the unemployment insurance system is part of the Department of Workforce Services. That's one of the programs, as well as the reemployment services. Utah, during the pandemic, deployed, because the UI systems were all overwhelmed, as we know, they were able to deploy staff into the UI program. They called about 41,000 UI claimants across the state of Utah during COVID and to talk to them about reemployment opportunities. They got a 40% pickup rate on those phone calls because, again, the hypothesis is that the DWS staff told me is they think people were answering the phone thinking it was about their benefits when the reality is they were being talked about reemployment opportunities. Meanwhile, in every other state, the UI silo is apart from the employment silo. And so the people who are reemploying don't even know who the UI claimants are. That's how basic the problems are in our states right now. In Utah, they've solved that problem. Now, in terms of federal reauthorization, there's a group of us that have worked very, very hard with Georgia and some other states to get exactly what Buzz was saying into the House bipartisan bill, which I think is a slight miracle, to be honest, that we were able to get some flexibilities as well as a demonstration authority into that bill that we're really excited about, because one of the things that happened with welfare reform in the 90s is states were experimenting. They were allowed to demonstrate that groundswell created a storm that the federal government could no longer ignore. And we ended up with federal welfare reform in 1996. Well, we want the same kind of thing here. We're trying to help and assist states with those kinds of innovative opportunities to be ready for the federal welfare or federal workforce reforms that hopefully are forthcoming.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, if I might, I remember the other point I was going to make, and Mr. Bishop, as he was talking, reminded me, Georgia has taken a couple of steps toward consolidation already. There's the Georgia Gateway program, which brings about 6 safety net programs together into a unified enrollment process. That's greatly streamlined the process there. So Georgia's already taken that step. Georgia's also begun under Governor Kemp has been consolidating workforce issues under the technical college system. So Georgia's started to take steps in this direction because folks recognize that consolidation helps. Ultimately, who it helps are the people who need the help the most, which are the folks who are looking for jobs and the folks who need the safety net benefits that we have. And the last thing I'll mention, Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Bishop has published 2 reports that I'm happy to provide to. I don't have copies, but I can provide these in PDF form to everybody on the committee.
Thank you. We've got a couple of questions, but just a comment that I really like. So somebody who's coming in and looking for SNAP benefits, they're so myopically focused on that because that's their biggest issue in their life right now, may not even know to, and so these folks are saying, hey, you get your SNAP benefits, and by the way, here are some job opportunities. That's basically what we're doing. All right. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, can I mention one thing,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, based on that? Actually, it's even better than that in Utah. When you go through the door, if you're going there for SNAP benefits, eligibility is what's called in the back room. All eligibility staff aren't even physically located at the one-stops. You meet with an employment specialist first, who then they come up with what employment plan, what are your needs, and then they look at what programs you're eligible for on the back end. So the message always is employment. It's not eligibility and social assistance.
Thank you very much. Not sure which one was first. Representative Kennard, was that you? 16?
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chair. I like it. I like it a lot. Working with the homeless in my transitional program, I see the need for it. We're always scattered, staff driving our clients here to there to get supportive services. To consolidate that, to make it more efficient would be a dream. Also, I just want to add my amen to the power of this WIOA program. Many of our clients, they're mandated to go back to school. So we use the WIOA program to facilitate that, and they go to Gwinnett Technical College. Right now, I have clients who are formerly homeless, formerly incarcerated. They're now getting their CDL, HVAC, welding, cybersecurity, phlebotomy, their IT specialists. And this is all going through the WIOA program through Gwinnett Technical College, where they have a 99% job placement rate. So it's very effective. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
16?
17.
17, my bad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hilton and Representative Emeritus Representative Brockwood, good to see you as always. I share Representative Kennard's sentiments. I think it's a good program, interesting idea, certainly offer greater efficiencies to better ensure service delivery for folks who need it. I did have a few questions, just since I'm not necessarily familiar with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. So that's a federal law signed by President Obama back in 2014. Is that correct? So is the task force, is its purpose to request or apply for a waiver ultimately?
Yeah, I could speak to that. It's an older program. It was, I believe, last reauthorized under President Obama. But it's been around a while. So yes, as Mr. Bishop mentioned, right now what sits in Washington in the WIOA reauthorization allows for demonstration projects for a certain number of states. I believe the threshold is if the population is under 6 million. So we're more than that. However, 3 years after passage, a state like Georgia could be eligible. And so I think, why it's important to move this task force now, it's going to take us a while to study this and to map out, to chart this kind of path. There's, as you read in the bill, there's numerous state departments that this touches and that are involved in, and figuring out how to get all of them to cooperate is going to take a lot of work. So I think that's why we want to start now, so that 3 years from now, Lord willing, the Congress will pass this, President Biden will sign it into law very quickly, and off we go. So 3 years from now, Georgia's ready to make that decision. Is this the plan we want to pursue?
A follow-up. So in terms of the structure of this, a federal approval would be necessary, since it would be like state funds drawing down federal funds along with any additional local funds that would go into the one pot, similar to the gentleman from Utah's description. Is that? Okay.
Yes. Yep. Right. And currently, understand, we're getting these funds now. We're drawing these funds now. We're probably, if you talk to the folks of the technical college system, we're probably leaving some WIOA funds on the table just because of enrollment. And I've talked with the lady who heads the program at Gwinnett Tech, and her biggest complaint is nobody knows about us. We're tucked away in a little corner here over in that we got this great program. We want to help people, and we need more publicity. So
and Mr. Chairman, one last question. As some of my friends across the aisle have mentioned, I think the dates as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've already got a amendment queued up to fix that.
Thank you.
Representative Mandisha Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I too like the bill. I think it's part of TQM, total quality management. I just have two questions. When you talk about gainful employment, is this designed to match what someone was making pre-COVID or increase their salary? Is that the match?
I mean, ideally, that would be the goal. Yeah. I mean, is to give them the skills training they need to meet or exceed what they're earning pre-COVID. Yeah.
Okay. And I ask that because I've had constituents who say they cannot find employment that was at the level that they had before the pandemic. The second question is, what will happen to our workforce development offices and our Goodwill Career Centers? What will we be doing with those?
Good question. I think that's part of what the task force is responsible for, is how do we kind of bring all those together in a more efficient, effective format for our constituents. So that'll be up to this task force to study and produce results for us as a legislative body to consider.
Thank you.
Okay, that exhausts all questions. Was there anyone in the audience who had signed up or wanted to speak? Okay, now would be the appropriate time for a motion on the bill. Okay, is there a second? All right, with discussion, recognize Vice Chairman Seaball.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to make a friendly amendment to clean up the bill and strike line 42 on page 2.
Okay.
And on page 4, line 80, change the date from 2024 to 2025. And on line 82, change the 2024 to 2025.
Okay. And we discussed the dates. The only reason, instead of changing the date on line 42, we just thought it's pretty understood. They're
going to meet.
If you're going to have a meeting, they're going to convene. So I just thought that was my little input.
If you do that, you have to renumber the subsections underneath as well, though, because you're eliminating an entire subsection.
Okay. Well, they're gonna have to read it. I mean, that's a simple change.
I know.
Okay. So it'll be renumbered appropriately. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Seaball. Do we have a second on the amendment? Is there any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. All opposed? Amendment carries. On the underlying bill, there has already been a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, carries. Scares me. We're dependent upon the federal government, but maybe we'll make something happen regardless. All right. No other business before the committee. We are adjourned, and thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good job. Thanks, sir. Yeah.